Hi, my name is Avril Speaks, and I'm here to moderate The Heart is a Muscle, written and directed by Imran Hamdulay. And we want to thank our lead sponsor, the Golden Globe Foundation, our media sponsor, KCRW, and our virtual screenings partner, Vision Media. And so I have here today, Imran is joining me as well as Keenan Arrison. Am I saying that
Okay.
correctly?
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. I'm really excited to talk about this film. Um, I think one of the first questions that I have is just kind of an origins question because I remember Imran was in LA for Global Media Makers for one project, and then I turned around and got an email that I've written something completely different. And it was this amazing script. And so maybe you can just talk a little bit about how this project came to be.
Firstly, thanks for having us. It's such an honor to be on the Film Independent platform again, after coming through the program. So yeah, thanks so much. And Abel, thank you for taking time to talk to us.
Of course.
There are two things. The project, after the project that I'd been with in LA, I was in development hell with that project, which was years and years, and I was desperate to shoot a film. And someone reached out to me, an EP in South Africa, and he said, "Hey, I've got this small budget. I've been looking for, projects who can fit this budget." It was about $200,000. And do you have anything? And I pitched him this two-liner, and he said, "That's great. Do you have a script?" I said, "I don't have a script, but are you willing to pay me to write a script?" You know? And he
That's
said,
awesome.
"Okay, I'll do it." He said, "I'll do it if you can give me a script in 2 months. And if I like it, we shoot within 6 months." And I was like, "Oh, geez." And yeah. And then kind of the fire was lit, and I gave him a script, and he liked it, and we shot the second draft. And it was quite a quick
Wow.
turnaround, between conception, like the idea, the one-liner, and delivery was a year and a half, which is crazy. I do not recommend
I mean,
that.
I don't know. That sounds like a pretty good path. Do you remember what was the one-liner? What do you remember what it was?
I think it was something along the lines of it's about fathers and sons set on the Cape Flats, but in a way no one's seen it before. And it's a really personal story, And I don't know if people that know about the Cape Flats in Cape Town, it's an area that has been misrepresented far too often in cinema. It's been shown it's been shown as a single narrative and not the entire picture. And he liked, the idea that we are representing, a people and a neighborhood that I come from.
I really want to get into that because I want to talk about how it was filmed. And I think it
Mhm.
was filmed in such a beautiful way, and it kind of gets at what you're talking about in terms of, we've never seen it this way before. But before we go there, maybe you can talk a little bit about about the casting and how Keenan became involved. Yeah.
Again, this was a $200,000 project. So the casting director was myself and Corsi, my producer. And I saw Keenan in a film called Shirley Adams, which was a debut film by Oliver Hermanus, who's just an incredible South African director doing amazing films in the States at the moment. But that was 2009, and I always remembered that, he was a lot younger than he is now, a lot more youthful. And I always just remember that, and I always thought, oh, this guy's got something. And while writing, I had him back in my mind. And, I knew someone who knew him, and we met up. He didn't audition. We just met up. I wanted to feel that we get along. And once I found out that we support the same football team, he was in. He was
Nice.
in. I was like, done. You got the job, man.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, and then the rest of the cast, we were just so lucky. I swear we were so blessed. Every single cast member that eventually you see in the film, there was no one else that could have being that person, that role, including the two little boys.
Yeah,
It was, I've got people looking over me that's like blessing me with this
totally.
kind of luck.
And I mean, that happens sometimes with films, right? You just like things come together really quickly like they're supposed to, and it just magic just happens. I think that that's really remarkable that there was no what that it was just a meeting that there was no audition, which speaks to your acting ability, Keenan, because I was really drawn in. And also there's so many different sort of like levels to the performance and to the story. Um, can you talk a little bit about playing this role and especially because there's so many interactions like with the kids and then there's the whole, the friends, like there's so many different sort of pockets and different relationships that you're kind of navigating through this role. Maybe you can talk about preparing for this film.
Such a good question. Thank you. I guess, from the day I met Imran, we spoke a bit about the story. I at some point then got the script and I read it, and something immediately connected. I felt, it was, I knew Iran in some way, in my line of either friendships or, family members. Somewhere down the line, I knew Orion, and it was an important story. And so it connected and it resonated with me really early on. Besides the fact that we support the same team. But I think, Imran is so detailed in his character work. I guess it took me to sort of dig within myself as an actor and just as a person and find where it sits for me. And is it comfortable? Is it uncomfortable? But I think looking to Imran, and just in terms of really fleshing out these characters, especially something like mine. Yes, it is a personal story, but we worked so hard on um, finding where Ryan sits in his body, in his head, in his immediate space, so that being his living space, his friendship space. And so, like you said, there are so many levels to the character that it's also levels that people can identify with. I think on the Cape Flats, we are uh, so used to these groups of friends doing things like this every Saturday, every weekend, watching football together, watching, having a barbecue. So there was something very familiar about it, and also I wanted to investigate a bit more. But then again, Imran he knew exactly where this character's arc, and I was just so fortunate, to be honest, and such a great honor to represent a community in this role.
Totally.
Can I add
Yeah.
something, Avril?
Yeah.
Because of the tight budget we had and the tight schedule, I didn't rehearse at all with any of the actors, especially with Keenan. So
Mhm.
I think we might have I introduced Keenan to Dean, the guy who plays Andre,
Mhm.
opposite him. I think we had a very brief table read, but it was more about the nuance of the language. But these guys are so talented, man. Like at some point, you
Yeah.
just gotta like hand it over, and you gotta be like, you can just feel like they get
Yeah.
it. They
Yeah.
got it. It
Yeah.
was so beautiful to see that. And Keenan and I, it was so. It was, I don't know what happened. It's one of these friendships where we become so close. I actually can't recall when we met. It just seems like
Mhm.
it's always,
Mhm.
and very quickly we had a shorthand on set, and I think that helped me a lot. It carried me in a big way through the shoot.
That's amazing. What about the kids? Because people always say, "Oh, don't work with kids. It's hard to work with kids." Like, what was it like work? I mean, because I think that the what's the name of the son? The like
Jared.
his performance was like so believable. I felt like that was actually your son. Like, watch you be like, "That was my son," but like, he was so good.
Listen,
Yeah.
again, all credit to Imran because it's like you said, we were blessed. These kids came so talented. I mean, there were a lot of the times we left Imran to just spoke to them on the side. Myself and Melissa, who played the mom, in no way did we get involved in like how the kid should be acting or performance or anything.
Wow.
They
I
just
think
Wow.
I was going to say, I think what I learned very quickly was that kids don't want to be treated as child actors. They want to be treated as as actors,
Mhm.
And I think like that quickly, I could, because they were both 5 years old,
Mm,
when we shot the film, and I spent a lot of time with the family, and like it was important for me that the family felt safe. That this man, a 5 year old, it's a
mhm.
precious little kid, and
Yeah.
I wanted it was important that the family, the mom and the dad, felt safe with the kid in the film, in the sense of what's the film about, what are we showing, how is the child being presented in the film, and they were on set, and it was really, Jude, the actor, Troy, the actor you're talking about, he was chaos, man. And he was like, when he came on set, the walkies would say, okay, the hurricane has arrived. The hurricane has arrived. But like what was beautiful was that we had, like myself and him, we had a really cool connection. It was his birthday 2 days ago, and we spoke on his birthday, and
Nice.
I think that was it. It was just like building like a genuine relationship with them, and once they felt safe,
Yeah.
it's fine. It's easy for them.
Yeah. I think there's so many there's some really nice moments in the film that you capture that are just everyday moments that give it so much texture. And at the same, it gives texture in terms of the overall look of the film, but it also gives texture to the relationship, especially those scenes with the kids, like the opening scene in the grocery store where all we see is the cart, but you hear the voices and it immediately gives like a really nice authentic quality to the film, but it also establishes the relationship from the very beginning, which is very nice. And
Mm.
and then the tub when he's in the bathtub and and he's just like, see, it's just like such a organic thing. That's just like these
Mm.
really nice moments. Can you talk a little bit about the look of the film? It's very beautifully shot. Um, and I love sort of, it's like the Cape Town flats, but there's also these really gorgeous vistas, in wides of the area, and it's stunning, the sky and
Mm.
the land and all of that. Can you talk a little bit about just kind of your thought process going into how you filmed it, the cinematography?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for saying that. There were multiple factors while writing the film that I was so cognizant of constantly, and it's so important was like, how are we presenting this area, and the visual language is equally as important as the characters and the story and so on. And very quickly I understood that I needed to give the actors the space to perform, and that was the most important thing. I didn't want to have the camera be a character in the film, like, and I especially wanted to avoid the shaky handheld kind of,
Yeah.
gritty moving through like the hood kind of thing. I really like that's something I was quite allergic to that. And once these different factors came into play, and you're looking at the area that I love so much, I think it's an area that is so much. I feel it's been the way it's been presented in photography and in story, it's been robbed of dignity, and complexity as well. And there were definitely images that stayed with me in how I'm going to shoot, how I'm going to frame specific landscapes, specific uh, kind of buildings. I'll give you like like a nice little story. When we had to shoot in we call it the flats, the block, like I guess we call it like the hood. I don't know,
Mhm.
we call it the flats. I had to get permission from the gang leaders, and we went in there, we spoke to all the gang leaders, and they were all quite hesitant. The area is kind of like it's kind of volatile. No one's actually shot there before out of fear of what might kick off. And what I did was I put together a really brief, like I had a 3-page like lookbook, you know, and I told them all what the story is, how we present in the story, and I showed them some image reference photography, and they were like, "Oh man," they were like, "That's
Mm.
beautiful." You know, we've never seen like these buildings photographed like that, you know, and they're like, "We love the story, we love how you show in this area," and they were like, "Yeah, you can go," you know. They were like,
Wow.
"Just don't disturb our business. That's all." You know,
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh."
I bet that's a whole other story.
I know. Yeah. Let's not go there.
Exactly. So,
But
I'm curious, Keenan, because there's so many, I mentioned this before, like there's so many different themes, you know, the themes within the film, and just kind of going back to what attracted you to this script. Like, were there certain themes in this that really stood out to you or that resonated, that you felt like this is an important element? Like I said, I just feel like there's so much, so many, but
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, they were literally jumping off the page. I mean, you've got the common theme is it's fathers and sons, and obviously what we inherit, and it sort of forced me to look at my relationship with my father, his
mm,
relationship, and just go down the line. And I think a large part of Imran's sort of note throughout shooting this film is how we're going to treat everything with kindness. We treat the
mm,
lens with kindness. We treat the characters with kindness. And so I needed to go back and reflect on and look at and investigate what what are these themes within my family circle? You
mm,
know, what are those broken lines that need to be repaired? And so, yeah, they definitely jumped out at me. But then I guess the generosity of this film, Imran's generosity, and just like trusting us in
mm,
telling the story, just as the characters and living in this world. Yeah, it was such an honor and I guess a blessing to be able to tell the story as Ryan.
mm,
Um, this the story with mothers and wives and what women sort of represent in the film. These strong women that are like
yeah,
quiet, but essentially make these decisions for men, for grown men. You know,
mm-hmm,
boys, sons. Um, so yeah, I could definitely relate. I come from a family of both, like men heavy as well as a female driven sort of unit and
mm-hmm,
system. So yeah, I come from homes that fortunately celebrate that joy, celebrate that kindness, celebrate each other.
yeah,
So there was a lot to draw from within my
yeah,
personal
you know what
space.
I love about Keenan's performance is that, and it's something that I gambled on it a little bit, is the way, and he followed through the way he presented an almost like unlikable character in some ways,
mm,
but we might not like, we're not fans of him, but we're cheering him on. We kind of like, we
yeah,
want you to do good, man, like, and you can see him stumbling, and he's trying to figure out this thing, how to be a better father, how to be a better husband, and but he's clumsy. He's not
yeah,
quite sure, like he's not he hasn't quite got the skills to do it yet. And I love how Keenan kind of embodied all of these different rhythms.
yeah.
um yeah,
And I
I
think,
really admire that. I don't think it's an easy thing to do.
It's
and
yeah.
sorry, I've just
No,
to like
good.
to add to what Imran said. This thing about him fumbling and he constantly hits this wall, but he's trying. And I think that's the most important thing is that he keeps on trying. He never.
Hmm.
It's unfinished, but he knows that he has to keep on keeping on in order to become better. And
Yeah.
therefore, the heart is a muscle. Got to exercise this muscle as
It's
men.
so, it's so true. You're kind of on this like roller coaster experience with him, like, and I feel like, oh, he's doing the right thing, and then the way it ends, you're just like, ah, you know, it's such it's just like so much the tension, the roller coaster, the tension of Ryan's actions, and then how the actions pay off in the end is like it's very unsettling
Yeah.
in a good way, in a good way.
Yeah.
I
Um,
mean, I think that's what we found is that the, what you're talking about, the sitting with you, is it's the thing that is the catalyst for conversation, to start the
yeah.
conversation for all of us, you
Mhm.
know. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in films that provoke in that way, and that kind of that leave us with a conversation and make people talk after the credits roll, you know, and make you sit in the seat and go, "Hey." I love that kind of thing. Um, just two more questions. One is I so I remember seeing an early cut of this film, and it was quite different. And I'm
It
curious.
was bad. It was bad. You can say it, Avril.
It was not. It was not. It was, I saw the bones. The bones were there. The bones were there. Um, maybe you can talk a little bit about just talk a little bit about that post process and finding the story
Yeah.
in that process.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Man, that first cut, I cried the first time I
No.
saw it. And yeah,
Yeah.
like I like for a variety of reasons. It is like, and that was because like I felt I'd let everyone down. So many people worked so hard on this, and I was like, oh man, like what have I done? And I took 2 months off. I told Paul, my brilliant editor, I said, look, man, I'm a bit burnt out because I produced the film as well.
Mhm.
And I said, I need time out. I took 2 months off and I came back to it. And I think it was in that 2 months that I did a lot of soul searching, and it was, I, I arrived at a place where I was starting to think about the themes a lot deeper. And there's the frameworks of masculinity, especially. I was looking at that, and it's a strange thing. Keenan's talking about kindness. I forgot about that in the edit. I was, you're
Mhm.
so like involved and tired, and in the 2 months, I came back to the thought, like the notion of the present, how is masculinity being presented, and there are all these masculinity can be brute and violent and destabilizing, and that's real, and that's a real thing that we are wrestling with in the world today. um I was within that. I think I landed on, okay, where do I find the healing in that? Because what I've got, like, what I'm speaking to at the end of this, fathers and sons, and this is a man trying to heal. And once I arrived at that, I realized, oh man, the most important people I don't have in the film are his parents. I never
Mhm.
mentioned them at all. So I went back, and the opening scene with the older man in the house, I reshot that. There's a few things, the voiceovers that come later in the film. That was all done
Mhm.
6 months after we shot. And that's one of my favorite things about filmmaking is that, you write the story in the script, you write it during the shoot, and you write it again during the edit. And along the way, you're discovering new things, you're discovering yourself, you're rediscovering parts of yourself that, you maybe lost or forgot about. So it was a hard experience, but you know, I'm grateful that I had a wonderful, wonderful editor.
Mhm.
He honestly, like, I think he carried me, he babied me through the process. Like, no, it's fine. You've got a good film on your hands. You're not the worst director in the world. Keep going. And I'm like, I shouldn't do this anymore. But yeah, I'm glad people appreciate the film. Considering where we were from at the beginning.
The music in the film was great too. Were those local artists, or what was the
Yeah. Yeah, so the film actually was inspired. So the film it's half based on an actual incident that happened when myself and my friends, my close friends, were barbecuing, and his name's actually Ryan, my good friend. His son went missing,
Mm,
and his 5-year-old son went missing, and we all just jumped into action because we'd known each other for like 25 years. You go there, you go there, you go there. And his kid was found very quickly. He was just like being naughty, just like
mm,
naughty kid hiding or something. And in those moments, I'd never seen Ryan's like the calm guy, while his kid was missing, I'd never seen him so fearful before. But
mm,
then once we had found his kid, and his kid was just like being a little bit mischievous, I'd never seen him be so angry before.
mm.
And that was just, I mean, he didn't slap his kid. He's
Yeah.
not that guy. But yeah, that was just the spark that kind of, you know, got me thinking. And then in that, Cape Town has a deep, deep tie to hip hop, you know, and I'm obviously like I'm a huge hip hop fan. So while I was writing, part of the story was inspired by J. Cole. It's a song called
Mm,
"She's Mine," where I
mm.
think the song is a letter he's writing to his daughter. And I was just, oh, I got that song on repeat.
Wow.
And those are the two things. And very quickly, I knew that I needed to find underground hip hop artists. And from early on, I think like I found, wow, I must have gone through like a few hundred songs, so everyone in the film is unsigned. All the musicians, the hip hop musicians are unsigned. They're all just like independent underground artists.
Mhm.
And the composer of the song as well, I've worked with him before. He's actually a classically trained hip hop artist, which I
Oh,
love. You know,
wow.
yeah. So he came from it like from this like really like obtuse and kind of oblique angle that you just don't expect. The way his mind was working, and he knew all the other songs that are going to be in the film, the hip hop songs, and the way he composed the music around that. Oh man, I was just in awe. I was like, oh, I love
Wow.
this. He actually won a local award at one of our local festivals for his music, his composition.
In this
Thrilled for
film.
him for this film. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, I
yeah,
love that. I love that.
yeah, yeah.
Imran, you really found gold in this project.
I'm blessed, man. I'm telling you.
I mean, you really found gold. I mean, the way everything came together, it's beautiful. And the sound and everything. My last question, I know just from this film, from reading the other film that the script, the film that you originally brought to LA, and just from talking to you, you have and seeing some of your shorts, you have a way of telling important stories that have a sort of political bent to them, but they're very human at its core. And I'm just curious if that is um, intentional. Is that something you've thought about? Can you talk about just kind of that sort of blend of these sort
Mm,
of thought-provoking films that have like political some of them I think maybe the other one may have been a little bit more overt than this
mm.
one maybe, but that humanity, that human element is so prevalent. And so maybe you could just talk a little bit about your philosophy behind that.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. I don't think it's something I do intentionally. I come from a family of activists. My dad was a prominent anti-apartheid activist. My mom too. My mom ran for elections, and my dad too, post 94 when we achieved liberation. So it's really deep, in my blood. I remember underground meetings happening at my grandmother's place. I'd hear stories about how my dad was picked up by the secret police. And, when they arrived, he was in the bathroom doing a number two, and he was like, yeah, they can wait. And he made them wait, always like that kind of stuff. So there's always humanity in a lot of the stories, which I love so much. So I think, my reference point is always personal stories. And I think those are the closest to me. And in that I question always my responsibility as a filmmaker and a purveyor of stories, especially in South Africa. You know, it's such a privilege to be able to tell stories. And I want, I, I'm afraid, like, I can't watch horrors and gore, and I'm a big scaredy cat. But what I love, like, you know, are films that are kind, and, you know, where I come out and I'm like, oh man, like, I want to do good. I want to do better. Like the film has given me something, you know, and I wish, I hope to make films like that. Um, I think part of it is also maybe feeling like a responsibility to, like, somehow preserving memories of my dad and of my dad's comrades that have passed on. Because I look around me and I worry that, you know, all the anti-apartheid vets that fought so long and for our freedom that we now have, they pass on stories, pass on with them, you know, and there's something in that. I really feel like there's something lost when stories are gone from ourselves.
Mm,
And I don't know, you know, there's just something in that that draws me to, I guess, to preserving those memories. And how do you do it in a way that's still artful and cinematic, you know?
mm,
Um, I don't know. I don't know if
yeah,
that answers the question.
I love that. It totally does. I love that. Thank you for that. I love that idea of preserving memories and using stories to do that. I think that that's fantastic. And I think you do that very well in this film as well. Even everything from the landscape to Cape Flats, that, you know, those, and even like the relationships, I think you do that very well. Um,
Thank you.
I want to thank you both. Keenan, do you have any parting words you'd love to say? Anything else you want to get off your chest about working on
No,
this
I'm
film?
good. But thank you so much for having us. Such a cool interview. Thank you.
Um, Well, thank you so much for taking the time and yeah, thank you for making this film. All the best on
Fantastic.
the future of the
Thanks so
film.
much.
Thank you so
Yeah.
Thanks,
much.
guys. Thanks, Avril.